right in the state of Hawaii. This is not Massachusetts, not California, not New Jersey. We are a distinct people with a distinct history and will of the people. Using the term marriage as a term to describe the union of same-sex couples is a battle of semantics. Please do not silence the voice of those who hold the definition of marriage as one that is beyond a civil definition and elevates it to a religious meaning as well. Secondly, you would like to make no legal distinction between opposite-sex couples and same-sex married couples. This disqualifies gender and sex roles as important aspects of marriage. Gender and sex do matter. Gender roles are still important in our functioning society. Disregarding gender roles in marriage is foolish because both sexes play significant and different roles, especially in raising children and educating a child. Thirdly, you've clearly done an inadequate job of assuring us that you are protecting our religious freedom and liberty because thousands of religious persons have rallied against and testified against this bill. Please allow for the proper time to discuss with your constituents and how you can do a better job of representing our will. Please do not pass this bill and give it the due process it deserves during the regular session. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you. Next up.
Aloha. My name is Felicia Castro. My number is 3378, and I oppose SB1. Myself, along with the other concerned parents, are here because our children of what may affect them and their generation now or later. Listening to the hearing the other day, Senator Nishihara stated that our education system will never be like the other states that has passed same-sex marriage. But that being said, can you guarantee us no such teaching that goes against our conscience and our beliefs will never enter into our school system? That will take away the innocence of our children and the younger generation. Can you guarantee us parents we won't need to meet certain qualifications to opt our child out of a teaching or school assembly? Can you guarantee? I know that all day you guys been hearing the similar questions, similar things that's going on. But this is a voice, the children has a voice, and they need their voices to be heard, our voices to be heard. Lastly, committee and chairman, without the authority you have now, and stand here as a concerned parent, grandparent, a citizen of Hawaii, wouldn't you want the very best and righteous education for your child that won't take away their right to voice their acceptance to what is right? Wouldn't you want your voice to count and be heard? Please, I ask you to not lean on your own understanding and make decisions that our children will have to suffer the consequences later. Please stop SB1 and let the people decide.
Thank you very much. Next up.
Honorable Chair Rhodes and members of the House Judiciary and Finance Committees, I have submitted my written testimony as number 3296.
Thank you.
The first page of that testimony is actually what I've changed because most of it has been heard. In earlier testimony, a UH professor said there was a pent-up demand for same-sex marriage. Page 2 of my written testimony shows our own Department of Health statistics showing the pattern of civil unions dropping off precipitously since they became available. Barney Frank, who was the first openly gay congressman, is quoted as saying, as long as there was no marriage, then the argument that same-sex marriage wasn't going to cause problems couldn't be refuted. It gave us a basis to use some evidence. This is a socio-economic experiment. There's been a lot of emotional testimony. There's questions regarding this bill. Unfortunately, there are many bullies and those who have already been bullied, daring you to dive off this SB1 cliff into the dark, murky pool below without thoroughly examining the evidence from the other 14 states and other countries. What is the evidence from these other states and countries been? I appeal to your reason. Take the time to examine and share the evidence with the people before you dive off the cliff and take the rest of the state of Hawaii with you. I urge you to vote no on this bill and allow yourselves the time to examine the evidence that already exists. There are many real dollars and much more in social capital at stake here. Please say no to the bullies. Listen to your friends who don't want you to dive off the cliff without prior knowledge of the issues and the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up.
Aloha, my name is Deborah Ritsuko Bear Barbour, and my registration number, or my number I got online, is 3320. I stand on my testimony, but it has been covered a lot, so I'm going to bring up a couple of other things. I want to voice my opposition to SB1. First of all, I want to say that I'm very excited to see so many people actively participating in the political process, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. I would like to thank in particular the House Clerk's office and Janice there, who answered my phone call at 11 p.m. at night and helped me to get my number to testify. Also, the web guys who answered my question by email a couple minutes later. Representative Rhodes, you're an amazing leader for this hearing. I only saw you a little cranky last night for like 5 minutes, and it's incredible. Representative Luke, you have also helped keep the process, wherever she is, to run fairly and smoothly. I just want to say mahalo. I am Yonsei, 4th generation from Japan on my mother's side. My mother met my dad in school in Nebraska, married him, and I was born, which makes my blood lineage also from the Oglala Lakota Nation and Northern Ponca Nation. I am many minorities mentioned in these proceedings, including a woman. I find it very offensive to have my people's experiences, which includes genocide and massacre at Wounded Knee, considered equal to sexual preference. I cannot peel my skin off or change my blood genealogy. You can choose to stop your sexual conduct that defines your identity. Do not equate yourself with me as a minority. Blood lineage is very important to the indigenous people. Finally, I want you to seriously consider doing something about eco rights for the Hawaiian people, the host people of this land first. Take care of the host people first, so we can take care of all the other stuff later. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
My number is 3291. My name is Brian Aki, and I have the privilege of being born and raised in Hawaii. Honorable Chair Rhodes, Luke, and members of the House Judiciary and Finance Committee, thank you for allowing me to come and testify tonight. I thank you for staying all these hours to hear us all testify. As a registered voter in the state of Hawaii, I'd like to thank this opportunity that you have given all of us to come out and express our concerns regarding SB1. I am opposed to SB1 for the reasons that have been repeated and voiced by the majority of the people who have testified before you yesterday and today. I would like this committee to kill this bill as it's presented and modified, because we, the majority, has already voted on the definition of marriage between man and woman back in 1998. I believe this special session has circumvented the democratic process and doesn't give enough time to discuss the impact that this bill will have long-term for our families in this state. I believe this special session only reflects the governor's will and not the will of the people. I believe if SB1 is passed during this special session, it'll set precedents in how and the will of the people can be overturned in the future. I believe the passing of SB1 will directly impact my First Amendment rights. I believe the passing of this bill will negatively impact our social fabric in the state of Hawaii. I have this question. If you ignore the voices of the majority who oppose this bill and pass it, this legislator will be the first in the nation to pass the same-sex marriage law through a special session within 5 to 10 days.
Thank you so much.
Wiping out 1,000 years of traditional marriage. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Melai DeMille. I'm number 3361. And I'm just here to add my voice in opposition to SB1. Many of the things that I will bring up, you've heard, and I appreciate your time that you've given each of us. I'm a religious individual with strong beliefs. I believe in God, the Eternal Father, and in His Son, Jesus Christ, and in the Holy Ghost. I believe in for traditional marriage. I'm a wife married to an incredible husband. I have 3 beautiful children. Learning about this bill, I am deeply concerned in their education. I am concerned of the impact of this bill will have on the schools and what will be taught there to my children. I am concerned of the conflict that I will teach them at home that is being passed on to, and the beliefs that I teach them at home, and then the beliefs that will be taught in school passed on to them that I don't agree with. I just urge you to vote no, that you give it the time that it deserves. This impacts people in many different ways, and I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Next, please.
Aloha, my name is Zane Lakden, number 3392. I was born and raised in Waimanalo and currently live in Lanikai, Oahu. I'm a 29-year-old Native Hawaiian entrepreneur and registered voter. I'm in opposition of the special session of SB1. I'm representing myself, some of my family members, and friends from many parts of the state that do not vote because of special sessions like this one. They feel that, and I quote, they don't have voice anyway, so why even bother to register and vote and waste the day off? In 1993, I, as well as my friends, were busy fighting off cooties because I was in elementary school. In 1998, me and my friends were busy trying to figure out high school. I myself was trying to learn how to march and play the tuba at the same time. So you have 15 years of people that did not have a voice about what happened in 1998. I would like to encourage you to let the people vote on this issue, to encourage voter registration on both sides of an entire state, to have those for and against the bill to work together, yet separately, to build up and encourage those in my generation and the next to vote, register and vote. Every citizen of this state and country should be guaranteed that their voice matters, that their voice is counted, and that in the voting booth, their voice has as much weight as of any person of any position in our state and in our country. Right now, I would like to ask everyone to stand up and just give our representatives a round of applause. Noho Nalu, sit down. Yes, Paul. That is just an example that we all can work together for a common goal. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Next, please. Thanks.
Chair Rose, committee members, legislators, and all of you, aloha. Aloha. My name is Kurt Kikuna, and I'm representing Kurt Kikuna today. Just so that you know who I am a pastor, but I wanted to make it clear that I represent myself. First of all,
Sorry,
like the previous gentleman.
We all know who you are, but we still need to know your number.
Yes, sir. My number is 3330.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Apologize. I admire you all for listening to us. It is an incredible task that you have before you, trying to disseminate the information. And what I've heard so far, obviously, there's no way I can reconnect with everything that has been said. There is so much going on here. There just seems to be a lot of confusion, but also a lot of emotions that are present, not just in this room, but outside of this room. And it just seems to me, because of that, we should take more time. There is no reason to rush what we're doing tonight or in this special session, except for some folks who feel like it needs to happen. But the people do need to speak. This is what we're supposed to be, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. You all represent that. That's why you all are voted in. So I'm just going to ask you, please consider this, that it should go to the people. I am wanting to to express my deep desire. I'm speaking against SB1, by the way, Mr. Chair, in case, you know. So just want you to know that I just want us to be a people who care for each other. Most of you who are sitting there, most of you have invited me to your chambers before. Most of you know who I am. And most of you know it is of no concern to me whether you are Republican, Democrat, Independent, or Irish. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the fact that you are people. And we are all people, but so are we who are sitting here. And what we desire to do is to have our will be known to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Chairman
Sorry,
Rhodes.
Kahu,
and members
can you
of the
please
committee.
stay?
Sorry.
Questions. We may have some questions for the testifiers.
Oh.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right.
If everyone who has just testified, if you could stay around. If you can't stay around, that'd be great. We'll have questions for you in a few minutes. But please.
All right, I'm Elwin Ahu. My number is 3391. Thank you for allowing us to speak and to share. I've had a chance to listen to the conversations around the building for the last couple of days, and I find that this debate is not about marriage. It's not about benefits. It's not about equality. It's about people who are trying to be heard on both sides. Proponents are claiming that they haven't been heard, but they're being recognized as second-class citizens. The opponents of the bill are crying out that they've already voted, and no one's listening. So both are simply trying to be heard. And I'm so thankful that we live in the USA, which has the best system in the world that can resolve such issues, and that system is called democracy. It's a system that promotes a process of equal treatment and fairness so that, regardless of the outcome, the winners and the losers will feel that they've had their fair shake. In the playground, democracy was simplified as simple junk in a poll. I've spent my years in my career as a circuit court judge, and in the judicial system, you have a trial that's where both sides can be heard, and an impartial judge and an impartial jury will decide. And my role as a judge was to ensure that both parties were treated fairly, that the counsel on both sides were treated fairly. But most of all, I felt my responsibility was to protect the process. The process became more important than the results. And in the legislature is no different. When the process is implemented and designed, the parties are treated fairly and they will respect the results. When the process is honored, united we stand. When the process is dishonored, divided we fall. And in this case, the process was not honored. That's why I stand in opposition to SB1. And it's not the process that the House has taken. I fully respect and I appreciate the process you've taken. The process as a whole. We've heard many unanswered questions, and we're rushing through the process. My time is up. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Next up.
Number 3360, I am speaking on behalf of Andrew Tarasevitz. Good evening, representatives. I have lived my life respecting other people's beliefs and choices. When this special session was called to address same-sex marriage in Hawaii, I believed it was simply about choice, and I respected that. In these hearings, we have been told that this bill is not about changing our education system. It is just about affording equal benefits to all. The truth is, legalizing same-sex marriage results in mandating the education system embrace the same standard. This is what Representative McDermott has repeatedly tried to point out. If we legalize same-sex marriage, our education system would be mandated to reflect the law of the land. Our children's education would reflect that alternative sexual lifestyles are normal by law. They will be indoctrinated to accept as normal unhealthy, unsafe sexual practices. DOE policy allows parents to opt their children out of controversial topics. If it is legal, why would any normal sexual acts be allowed to be considered controversial? Children beginning in elementary school are taught that there are no rules for being a boy or a girl, and that affirming homosexuality demonstrates good citizenship. The indoctrination includes explicit and pornographic material normalizing homosexual behavior with graphic detail, encouraging experimentation, and includes tips on how to perform them safely. I do respect other people's choices, but I believe in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Our vulnerable children will be confused about their gender, experiment in sexually risky behavior, and compromise their morality. I believe the majority of the people are unaware of this passage would change forever the education of children.
Thank you so much. No. Next, please.
Thank you for letting me participate in this democratic process. My name is Lloyd Jones. I'm from Kailua. My number is 3323. I'm a father. I'm a physician. I'm a resident. And today I'm a Medicare participant. Just this morning. There have been many eloquent speakers today. Persuasive, emotive, very powerful. And I'm sorry, but I'm not one of them. In the hospital, we call it sundowning. And what it means is at night, your brain goes down. And so I'm going to struggle through this, and please bear with me. I wish to voice my opposition to Bill SB1. I have 3 points. Since before laws codifying it, civilizations in all major religions have recognized opposite-sex marriage as the building block of a society. A change from conjugal marriage to a companion marriage does not recognize the unique quality of a heterosexual marriage. Implicit in the bill is that there is no difference between mothers and fathers. Does any of us really believe this? For example, what single-parent mother doesn't recognize the need for a male role model for her son to learn how to relate to the opposite sex, and who truly understands that boy and can set limits? A girl needs to see an adult male who cherishes her, for her. And lost my place. And shows her how men relate to women. Until recently, sociological studies regarding homosexual couple stability and parenting outcomes.
Thank you so much. Next, please.
Okay.
Aloha committee members. My number is 3465. My name is Amy Casey, and I strongly oppose the bill SB1. I strongly feel that the sanctity of traditional marriage between man and woman should be protected. Marriage in this form has been at the foundation of society. Changing its nature will lead to the weakening of families in our state and nation. This will lead to multiple social and economic problems in the future. Aside from being opposed to the nature of its bill itself, I have strong concerns that the bill does not have sufficient protection for religious organizations and small businesses. This is a delicate matter, and I truly feel that it could not be taken care of within these short amount of days. God has created man and woman and ordained marriage between a man and a woman. I believe that our country was founded upon honest, trustworthy people that represent the people, the democratic system. I believe that a majority of the people of Hawaii are against this bill. Please let the people vote. Hawaii is a unique place. And if you have children or planning to have children, please take into consideration what type of environment and society you would like your child to grow up in. I am an educator in the DOE system, and I believe that we need to protect our children within the school system. As an educator, I work with students, and there's often times that I have to work with students that deal with sexual incidents. And I believe that if we create a system that protects the students then we'll be able to protect our society. I urge you to vote no against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, let's break here and ask questions of the previous testifiers. Vice Chair Har. Vice Chair Har passes to Representative McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and you'll be glad to know there'll be no theology questions this round. Can I ask Bud Walsh to come up very briefly? Bud, your testimony was somewhat intriguing. I'm not sure I quite followed it, but you were alluding to the casualty rate went up during the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell or something like that?
That is correct.
Is that because do you have any evidence that's because of the policy or just increased combat activity?
Well, there was an increase in combat activity. If you look at some of the events that surrounded that, in 2009, the year prior, the U.S. Defense Department was asked to remove sodomy and some other laws regarding homosexuality in the military. In February of 2010, Secretary Gates announced that he would have a one-year review of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy across our nation. He said he asked Congress that they would wait 1 year for that review to be done. In May, a few months later, the House voted on it. In September, a judge in California ruled that the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy was unconstitutional.
Okay, very briefly, because I don't want to. So basically your assertion is that the Islamic fundamentalists took that as an excuse to ramp up attacks inside the fence line.
That is correct. I did serve as one of the leaders going into the Middle East right after the invasion of Iraq, and I was one of the on an 8-man leadership team with the 1st Iraqi division that went in to retake the city of Samarra, and then later with the cities of Fallujah. I did talk to many leaders across the country and families and tribal leaders during that time when we stood up the Iraqi forces. In my submitted testimony, I also included this year's issue of Inspired magazine from Al-Qaeda, where they immediately attacked the president on his changing of his issues on same-sex marriage and attacked Congress and also the United States for their policy change on this. I also included in my written testimony the adamant response that the president got from state leaders and religious leaders throughout Africa through their countries against this policy on same-sex marriage.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I got the gist of it. I just wanted to get that. Could I ask Judge Ahu to come up, please? Judge Ahu, in your view, in your other hat as a judge, your retired judge, if there are no specific guidelines outlined, it's my understanding that the courts rule very narrowly with regard to religious protections. They, generally speaking, they are not expansive in their interpretation. This is a generalization, but from your experience, is that a fair estimation?
I can't really answer that specific. I'm just trying to think of some specific case. It's a First Amendment right. And so when you look at it as a court and you're reviewing it through First Amendment lenses, then there is a high degree of standard that you need.
Well, an individual has rights of conscientious objection. Muhammad Ali didn't. The Supreme Court ruled he had a religious right not to be drafted, not to fight in a war. And we're talking about photographers will be compelled to make an affirmative action, which is to photograph a wedding. Did Muhammad Ali have a higher standard to meet, not to be drafted?
No, it's in a claim where it's an unconstitutional law. I know what you're asking now. Yeah, there are individual religious protections, or protections for individuals on religious rights.
Okay, and I'm moving quickly because it's late and I don't want to hog it. Earlier today, Judge Levinson told us there was no civil right to same-sex marriage or a fundamental right either. What does that mean to the layperson? No civil right or no fundamental right to same-sex marriage. What does that mean to the layman?
There's a civil right to marry. He was correct in that.
No, he said there was no civil right to same-sex marriage.
Yeah, there's no civil right to same-sex marriage.
And there's no civil right, no fundamental right to same-sex marriage.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Representative Ward.
Pastor Owen, could you come back for a second? As a judge and a pastor, do you have any advisory regarding the church to be exempted public accommodations or be within it? What's your advisory if that was the choice?
I'm sorry again?
To be exempted in the public accommodations law or to be included within it?
You know, it's a real fine line with churches on public accommodations. I've heard the arguments, I've heard the representations. In my view, my opinion, churches become public accommodations because we're offering services to the general public. When we open our doors aren't open. We don't check people in at the door for membership cards. The intent of a church is, and its mission is to reach out to the general public, whoever's not a member. We're inviting them in. We do it through outreaches. We do it through camps for young kids. So the way I read the public accommodations law, if you're opening up your business or organization to visitors and guests, it puts you under that law. And so I'm very concerned about that. Although there are protections under SB1 for religious organizations, I think we're pretty much covered under First Amendment anyway. But when you have the public accommodations law now hanging out here somewhere that's not being addressed, it concerns me.
Do you have any comments on the Connecticut law vis-a-vis SB1?
I think Connecticut law adds a lot more protection for organizations. I'd like to see it even go towards individuals. When I talk to members of our church about this particular bill and what's passing, what's going through the process, the number one concern, it comes from small business owners. They're very concerned because they feel that they have a right as an individual to continue their religious beliefs outside of a Sunday service. I think I'm reading the law and I've talked to several legislators, and they have a problem with a person making a profit and being able to claim this religious exemption. And my response is, I'm not a Christian only on Sunday. I'm a Christian 24/7. And so if you're telling me that I'm affected just because I open a business and make a profit, then you're infringing upon my right as a Christian, as an American.
Could that be amended in SB1 to include that? Because we've been receiving a lot of cannot, it's never been in, and it's distant.
You need to amend it with specific exemptions for individuals and businesses.
Thank you.
The way it stands now is not good enough.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions?
Actually, I want to call Pastor Kahu Kekuna on his individual basis.
Okay.
He's been Chair, he's been a peacemaker, a peacekeeper, and we need some of that here. Thank you, Pastor Elwin. Did you want to add something before you hand off to?
No, just to add on what I said in my main testimony, if you respect the process, people are okay. I've seen that in courts. I've seen that in mediation. If you have a process that's set out, and the process I'm talking about is not just hearings such as this, but don't try to cram an important decision that's intended to change the traditions and cultures and definitions of centuries-old just understanding of marriage in just 5 days. It takes much longer than that.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Kaho Kekuna.
Yes, sir.
I labeled you as a peacemaker, a peacekeeper, and we need some of that. What is the remedy to what otherwise is a conflicting between your profession in the religious sphere and the civil rights sphere? That's a very broad question. You can put your collar on or you can take it off.
Thank you. Where I am, where I have come to, because of my faith, I rely on the same commandment that Jesus answered the Pharisees concerning what is the greatest thing that I can be about, what is the greatest law there is in the universe. And Jesus made it very clear the greatest law is to love God first and foremost, and then love one another. And I do not want to bypass either one of those. If we do that, then the third will follow, as Pastor Elwin has said. Then the process will be complete, because then we will even know how to love ourselves. It doesn't begin with ourselves and accommodating ourselves first. It always begins with loving God. He is much broader, much greater, and brings to the table beyond who we are what true love is: peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and so on. And when that comes to the table, then we open up ourselves to what God has. And then it's interesting that people also desire the same things. So when we love God first, that's what I want to do. And I have some brothers and sisters who are part of the LGBT and so forth. And we have discussions. But one thing we do agree on is we are going to love God first, because we need to look to Him first. And then we also have agreed we will love one another. We will not let the issue divide us. Now, you can't speak to everyone. Not everyone believes in that or wants to move in that direction. And we can't do anything about that. I have no control over that.
I hate to get in the way of a good sermon, but
he's just getting warmed up.
Started.
Yeah, he was just getting warmed up, Chair. He was just getting warmed up.
Do you mind if we go on to Representative
okay.
Fukumoto?
And I want to go back to Colette Machado later, if I may.
Okay. Representative Fukumoto.
Thank you. Pastor Owen, do you mind coming back up for a second? While you're walking, I'll just sort of state my question. We've had a lot of people say things, and I've heard from people outside, words like corruption, injustice, and they feel like the process has not been followed. And I think we've had a lot of people that maybe didn't articulate it as fully. Do you mind just sort of going into just a couple of examples, or just give us an idea what the sentiment is out there? I'm thinking maybe you can articulate it maybe better than most.
Well, I think a lot of it comes as a result of previous testimony that was heard by this committee, where there were many uncertainties of particulars, education, tax issues, whether churches fall under the public accommodations, individual exposures. So many, many different issues. Even the testimony regarding whether it's a trait that you're born with or not. I truly respect the opinions that were shared. But to me, the answer, plain and simple answer, the jury is still out. And although I've heard also comments that it's time, we've been doing this for 20 years. When I listen to and I sense the passion on both sides, and parties aren't coming to the table together to work this out, it's not time. There's still time. See, the legislative branch of the government is the only branch that does not have to make a decision. Think about it. In the judicial branch, a party brings a claim, the judge has to make a decision. In the executive branch, when he receives a bill from the legislature, he has to either sign it or it goes into law, or veto it. He has to make a decision. The legislative branch is designed so that there can be sufficient discussion, public debate, vetting of information. So when public policy is developed, it was done in a process that's respected by all parties.
Do you feel that there's any way that we can sort of restore that process right now during a special session, or do you think we sort of would just have to put it off?
You're really pushing a lot into this few days. And the way I think of it, and I go back to my courtroom days, I will never have a jury go through deliberations and force them to come to a decision. I will never have them go through a case and say, you got 5 days, otherwise I'm taking it back and I'm going to make the decision. I can't. What happens when they can't come to a decision? It's a mistrial. And they decide to try it over again. And a mistrial, they'll try it over again. See, they have to come to a decision, however. The legislative branch does not have to come to that decision yet. Give it the time that it needs. So when both sides are ready to come to that agreement, it's good. And everybody can say, we're good.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, any other questions? Representative Vice Chair Har.
Thank you, Chair.
Representative Jordan.
Can I have Judge Aho, please? Can you go? Judge, yeah. Sorry. You were walking off too quickly. Okay, Judge Ahu, earlier today, Justice Levinson was here, and when asked a question about the Bear case and whether First Amendment rights were in fact weighed in that decision, he said no. So that being said, you have read Senate Bill 1, correct?
Yes.
You've read the religious exemption language, correct, on page 6?
Yes.
Okay. So in your learned opinion, is it your opinion that this particular exemption is somewhat narrow?
Is
narrow.
Is too narrow.
Okay, it's too narrow.
Yes.
The Attorney General did in fact testify yesterday that it did only apply to solemnization.
Right.
Okay, so that being said, now if we move into the area of First Amendment rights, we talked about the fact that yes, everyone thinks they have their First Amendment rights protected, and yes, they're carved out here with respect to solemnization only. But again, public accommodations is silent.
Right.
And so, you know, you've already contended that with the lack of discussion of public accommodations, so where does it fall into the ambit of this particular bill?
It doesn't.
Okay, so arguably it still applies, correct?
It still applies. It's floating out there somewhere.
Unless we have an express carve out.
And that's where the uncomfortableness develops, because you don't know.
Okay,
this is a lawyer's dream, because only lawyers will make money off of this thing. It's gonna flood the courts. It's going to add additional burdens to the judicial system because it's not clear. There are many times, I strike that, I don't want to generalize it, but there have been times where cases have been brought into my courtroom, and I've had to review the law, and I really scratched my head. Who's writing these laws? Because, you know, you do not write laws that are vague and ambiguous.
Absolutely.
You want to create public policy. See, the best thing you can do as a decision maker or in a position that you're in and I was in is to create predictability. The more a party can predict what's going to happen, the less they have to run to court or they have to run to you. You want to create predictability.
Thank you, Judge Ahu, and I think the Attorney General actually confirmed what you just said, that this bill would end up in court for many years.
It will.
Okay, thank you very much, Judge Ahu.
Representative Jordan.
Pastor Ahu, sorry, couldn't turn it on fast enough. So obviously you have read SB1.
Yes.
Did you see the section of 572C, which is the rights of parents in this particular draft?
Yeah, I didn't read that too closely in that section, though.
Okay. Shucks. I kind of wanted your opinion on what that meant.
The assumption of parentage?
Yes.
Parentage assumption? Yeah, I've heard testimony. I've been sitting here about as long as you guys, so I want to go home. But I've heard the dilemma that can be created if there isn't a clear definition, because you have an assumed parentage. Is that what you're getting at?
Correct.
Yeah.
Would that cause, like you stated earlier, maybe chaos in the courts?
It will, and let me explain how. I'll relate it to some discussion about a sunset provision. Let's try it out a few years, and then we'll reevaluate it. Doesn't happen in marriage. Once you allow marriage to take place and the benefits and contracts that come along with it, you cannot review the law and say, you know what, maybe we made a mistake. Case in point, Kamehameha Schools, child who was determined to not have the bloodline because of, you know, different things that happened in the adoption process. But he was already enrolled in school.
Correct.
He had already gone through several years, so Judge Erdrich said, you know, I made a mistake, but too late. Same with this law. That's why I reiterate, take your time on this one. There have been many, many years that have gone by, and my heart goes out to, you know, loss of benefits. But you want to create a really good law.
I'm assuming you're familiar with the Religious Freedom Restoration Act?
Not quite.
Oh, not quite.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I'm not that smart.
Oh. Okay. Thank you very much, Judge.
Okay. Members, any other questions?
Sorry, Chair. Chair.
Let me go back to McDermott first.
Chair.
Representative McDermott.
Very quickly, Ms. Machado, are you still here? Go ahead. No, you flew all the way in. We want to give you an opportunity to shine.
I don't know about shine, but that's okay. kind of drooping.
Ms. Machado, not in your OHA capacity, but as a Native Hawaiian, what is the history and cultural practices of Native Hawaiians with regard to same-sex marriage, if any?
I base my my layman's interpretation to our Kumulipo, which is our creation chant. And in there, they describe that the creation is to cause siblings or to give birth. So we know how all that works. I'm gonna not profess that I'm a doctor.
Okay.
So I stand on the Kumulipo and the creation chant that it supports the creation of the Hawaiian race.
Okay.
They don't say man or woman, but they say through chants how it came to be.
Okay, thank you very much.
Vice Chair Har? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vice Chair. Okay, Representative Onishi. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's the big island. Aloha.
Yes, if Judge Ahu could come back, please. Sorry for making you go back and forth. Earlier in the questioning, you mentioned that you believe that the First Amendment would be applied to any interpretation of the religious freedom regarding this law?
First Amendment is the religious protection.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would be applied in this case regarding any question?
It exists regardless of this bill.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So that trumps anything, any bill that is developed in regards to religious freedom. Am I correct?
I don't know if I want to say it trumps it. You don't want to create a bill where you have possible inconsistencies with First Amendment.
Okay. You said you read Senate Bill 1, and on page 2, let me back up. In Justice Livingston's testimony, he said that one of the things that would be applied to the interpretation of the law was the intent of the law. And in Senate Bill 1, it begins on the bottom of page 1. It says, therefore, it is the intent of this legislation too, and then it continues, and paragraph number 3B, it says, clarifying that unless a religious organization allows use of its facilities or grounds by the general public for weddings for a profit, such organization shall not be required to make its facilities or grounds available for solemnization or any marriage celebration. How would you interpret that?
Even if you didn't have that provision, First Amendment right would apply.
So there is protection.
For the organization, not for the individual.
Yeah, for the organization, right? But previous to that, it says, ensuring that no clergy or any other officer of a religious organization will be required to solemnize any marriage in accordance with the Hawaii State Constitution and the United States Constitution. So that provides any person working for a religious organization protection. Am I correct?
With regard to solemnization.
Right.
First Amendment is broader than that.
Okay, yeah, but this would apply in terms of for
First
marriages,
Amendment
right?
is all my rights to worship and conduct myself according to my religious belief. Not just solemnization.
I'm sorry?
Not just solemnization. So you're saying...
But the First Amendment would protect those rights, right? Am I correct?
First Amendment would be broader, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Har.
Thank you. Chair Machado, please. Thank you for being with us for the past 2 days, Trustee Machado. I know that you live on Molokai, so this is very late. Okay, I was very compelled by your testimony. There were some very salient points you brought up. First and foremost, you talked about process. As somebody who is here in her capacity as the chairperson of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, you are very intimately familiar with the process that is the regular session. You've heard many people testify that this bill should have been brought in a regular session, and in your written testimony, you indicate the same thing. As someone who is intimately familiar with the legislative process, can you please explain why the special session is inadequate and why this bill should not be passed in a special session?
I believe that Representative Jean Ward had described that there's some public health issues that it would have been referred to the Health Committee. There are various layers that could be referred, whether it be a double, a triple, or just a two-tier level, but that would constitute the kind of level that you would not have in a tight situation as this. What I mean is, I think you've heard repeatedly how inadequate the time frame has been. We sat through the Monday hearing in front of the Senate Judiciary, and it went very quick and abrupt. It got referred down, took a vote, and then bingo, we're here Thursday on Halloween. And I can tell you that there was some suspicion that the Thursday was selected because all the churches do their, Hallow hymn. And so that would have stagnated or limited those that could participate openly to testify. So that began the eroding of a trust-related responsibility on a process, given what the House was left with the bill to review. Also, what didn't work out well was that there was a poll that was in the Star Advertiser way before this process began, and those that were interviewed had already identified their positions, that they were for it, those that were opposed to it, and which ones were undecided. So normally you would like to think that you would have the ample time, whether it takes 3 months to review, make the proper referrals, vet it in each of the houses coming from the Senate, then you make your appropriate, and if you need your appropriate review, and if you need to, you can get it to conference. That did not happen. It appeared that it was a slam dunk situation coming directly from my friend, the governor of the state of Hawaii, Neil Abercrombie. And then it changed from what they call marriage equality to just equality on SB1. And there were other provisions. If you line it up on the two bills, there were a little bit more details that went into SB1 that gave some suspect that, gee, this was going to be a lot more difficult to untangle or to unravel if we were going to try to get to the level we wanted. If it is not what you have provided us here, the two chairs, this process, we would still be in darkness. And I don't use that in a biblical term, but I believe that we would not know how to even deal with trying to get to the root causes or the information that we need. And that's why I can tell you folks, you only have a few options. Hold a bill, vote no, or work on an amendment that could be substantial, as Kahu Alwin Ahu has described, that we all can feel and leave the table knowing that we was not in a kangaroo court. That's all I would have to say. It just felt it was a one-sided operation. When you go into the full session, you really have a lot of opportunity to talk story, to even try to get approval to take it out to the neighbor islands to get input. And that's what I feel would have quieted down everybody's suspect. Transparency is important in your roles.
Okay, thank you. Chair, also, in your written testimony, you bring up 572C, which I brought up several times,
Yes.
regarding the parental presumptions. And we had a woman testifying earlier today. She gave that example about two female women, one of them Native Hawaiian, one non-Native Hawaiian, and the non-Native Hawaiian has a child who, with another non-Native Hawaiian or with sperm that is non-Native Hawaiian, they produce a child, and because of the parental presumption, that child without one drop of Native Hawaiian blood may now receive certain benefits entitled to Native Hawaiians.
I find that quite divisive, when it comes to...
Could you elaborate on that, please, Christine?
Divisiveness means that there is a blood quantum that requires us that are eligible for a housing component, and you have to have 50% blood quantum. And then you have those that are recognized, especially enrollment into the private school called Kamehameha Schools Bishop Estate, where you don't have to have any blood quantum. At the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, we serve both beneficiaries through our grant-making program as well as direct services, yeah?
Okay.
So either way you go, the bloodline, a very valid proof of your ethnicity is going to be required. And the way they've done it now is by registration.
Okay.
Each group, such as Kamehameha Schools, Bishop Estate, they have a database. We have a database, so students that are going on to college and they want to prove their ancestry, we provide that verification. Same thing with the Department of Hawaiian Homes, which is not public. If you can trace your what they call the moku auhau and trace back to your 50% lineage, that's something that they have their own process that verifies that. And that's what it would end up being, tracing your moku auhau and validating if you have the blood or the koko, as we call it.
Okay, but arguably now, if this bill were to pass as is, then in that situation that we described, that child would automatically have as his or her other
That's
parent
what
a
it's
Native
intended
Hawaiian.
to do. It would be providing that opportunity.
I'm sorry?
It would provide for that opportunity for the
So
child.
that child would in fact qualify
Absolutely.
without having one drop of Hawaiian blood.
That's what it's described as.
Okay,
now.
and finally, Trustee, you also talked about one final thing, and you didn't get into it in your verbal testimony about public accommodations, because again, we talk about it a lot, and you really went into it in your written testimony. Can you please elaborate, because you did not talk about it in your verbal testimony?
I forget what I said, but it couldn't have been as clear as what Kahu Elwed Ahu has described about the lack of protections.
Okay,
For me, I represent a very small church. We're not even a nonprofit in our Ho'omana churches statewide. To me, it represents that if my kahu and our memberships are not in the thousands, if our kahu, and we have 5 participating churches under our denomination, if the position of the kahu for each church is, and they have decided not to participate. We have halls on Molokai. The Halava Church, Jerusalem Aho in Halava, is the most photographed church on Molokai. That might be subject to individuals wanting to go to a picturesque Hawaiian valley, beautiful waterfall, very quiet area to have wedding ceremonies there. It is beautiful. The church is that particular church goes through a lot of weddings there. They don't necessarily prefer on the beach side, but they like the way the church is situated with the steeple.
But are they open to the public? Do they allow the public, like Japanese visitors or tourists, come and...
We have visitors that come. They impressed with how it's kept. They leave little donations. They leave notes and talk about how beautiful it is in the valley, as well as the church being there.
Okay, but we're not talking, because solemnization is out. We already know solemnization is covered in this bill, but let's say, can it be used like as a meeting room? Can a group go there?
Absolutely, we can accommodate for meeting areas as well as...
And do they in fact do that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so you do fall into the public accommodation?
We do.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, any other questions? Oh.
Sure.
Can we, do you mind, Representative Ward, can we just... We have
I'll
one
make
person.
my answer short too.
Yeah, I'm going to be very brief.
Chairman Rhodes.
We have 5 minutes, and we have one person whose number is
This
less
young
than
lady has stuck with
3,400.
us for 2 days, Chair. I want to thank her. That
Please
she's
quickly,
been here.
quickly.
But I also know that if there's a fourth branch of government, it's you. And it's a very key thing because Hawaiian sovereignty is emerging. How would this bill impact a Hawaiian sovereign nation, or would it be something that wouldn't be effective, or something that
If
OHA
the
itself
sovereign
would do?
nation was enacted and in position, it would be up to the governance provision to set that policy. Right now, we have no policy on
And
this.
you've not discussed this particular issue?
No.
It's
Okay.
not- okay,
Thank you. I believe we have one testifier who has a number that's lower than 3,400. Yes. Okay. You will be probably will be our last witness the last testifier for the night. Go ahead.
I truly appreciate you letting me speak. I come to you as a graduate of Kaiser High School, who I hope won their game tonight. A husband, a father, an educator, a pastor, and a former small business owner. And this is the 4th time I've been here in the last 2 days, so I appreciate you not making me come back a 5th. And I think I'm exceptional in that there's people who want to testify that probably haven't been able to come back because they didn't know when their number was called. And I appreciate that that's nobody's fault. I come in opposition of the bill tonight, and I'm not hateful. I do not hate homosexuals or lesbians. I truly believe doing this is what's best for everybody. Apart from religious beliefs, I think natural law declares this. And if we call something that hasn't been marriage up to now marriage, I think there will be consequences for all of our culture. I'm concerned because I believe this bill narrows my life of faith, and a life of faith is not lived for a couple hours on Sunday. It's not lived within the walls of a church. It encompasses my whole life, including my business. Nobody should be mistreated, but on the other hand, nobody should be forced to violate their sincerely long-held religious beliefs as well. So I urge you, please, to vote no for now so that we can make the best decision for everybody, both groups. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we're going to take, Mr. Kuroda is saying we're taking one more. Okay, please come forward. What's your number?
Good evening. My name is Li'i Tau'ili'ili Purcell. My number is 3263. This is my husband behind me. He is a retired first-class petty officer in the U.S. Navy. So he has defended what we are arguing here tonight, the Constitution and religious freedoms and our rights as American citizens. I am not a politician. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. But I am someone that is concerned about SB1. I am in the medical field. What I do know is that in my job, we emit radioactive sound waves to be able to diagnose disease. Even though we can only see 2 centimeters to maybe 1 feet, we are responsible for sound waves that can go up to 30 feet. I am asking you and making this aware here that you can only see what's happening here and now with this bill. I'm asking that you don't rush it because the repercussions of this bill will go on for generations to come. I am speaking for my children, my children's children, as well as everybody here in Hawaii, to say that I strongly oppose SB1. For whatever reasons that have been given here this evening, yesterday, the day before that, I echo that and I endorse it, and I am grateful for this opportunity to be able to do so and stand before you to say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions for these last 2 testifiers? Okay, seeing none, we are in recess, until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning in this room. Recess. And being so patient, I really do appreciate it.